Hot take. Steven Universe is a good show. I just recently binged the first season of Steven Universe. The first time I watched Steven Universe, I was kind of young, and I don't really think I got a lot of it. I think I liked it quite a bit, but I stopped watching around season 3. It didn't affect me quite as much as it had affected a lot of other people. I think because I didn't have the life experience that a lot of the show was trying to relate to. So now it's kind of making its way around the internet again on apps like TikTok, and I thought I'd give it another shot. I really wanted to see what made this show super special to so many people. And so I binged the first season in 2 days, and I decided that I'm going to do this season by season and not the entire show because I'm lazy and I don't want to make super long video essays. I'm not that smart, and I'm worried I'm going to forget a lot of details because that has certainly happened in the past. So, let's pretend I'm a real YouTuber for a second and start with talking about the plot. The plot of the plot of season 1 of Steven Universe is non-existent. Most of the cool stuff in the story by this point has kind of already happened, and we're just kind of living in the aftermath. We're basically seeing what's happened after the Crystal Gems have won the big war and are preparing for whatever's coming next. So most of season 1 just kind of consists of us getting to know the world and the characters. And here's where the first thing that I really like about this show comes in. There is very, very little needless exposition. There isn't a huge preamble about what we missed, about what gems are, or why they came to Earth. The show kind of just leaves these things as mysteries. We don't know who Steven's mom is or why she isn't around anymore. And these things are never really explained to us. We just kind of learn about them naturally as the story goes on. And I think that's something that Steven Universe does really well. It has a really natural flow to its world building and storytelling. Most of season 1, we're just kind of following Steven as he goes around Beach City and talks to new friends and talks to old friends, and we learn more about his relationship with his dad, and we get more on his relationship with each of the gems, and it's kind of just like character building and world building throughout the entire season. And then they finish it off with a fucking banger of a finale where actually all the stuff that has just been hinted at, that there's something bigger going on or that there's something more dangerous out there that we don't know about, actually comes to a head with the last 2 episodes, which genuinely gave me chills when I was watching them. They were so good. I'm not going to worry about spoilers because I'm pretty sure everyone has seen the show at this point. But Jasper and Peridot coming to Earth on this single, intimidating, floating hand ship that the gems can't do anything about is genuinely terrifying. It genuinely feels like shit has hit the fan in a way that we can't really deal with the tools that we have. These people are more advanced than us, they're more powerful than us, and it's genuinely frightening. And it's incredible that the characters are also realistically frightened. This show is also really funny. Again, I don't really think I got a lot of the jokes my first time around. I mean, there was some like kid humor earlier on, but as the show went on and the jokes got smarter and more out there, I didn't really relate to them as much. But now, when I'm 19 and depressed and in college, this shit's giving me dopamine at the wazoo.
Are you guys going to become a gem fusion? Ah!
The script is genuinely really witty, and something that I really, really appreciate is that each of the characters are funny in a different way. Every single character has a different form of humor, and it's not just the same type of joke told from different mouths. Amphibia. I'm just kidding. I love Amphibia. But I genuinely found myself laughing out loud to a lot of the stuff in this show.
Hello, this is Mum Universe. Yes, the children are playing swords. Sorry, playing with swords. They're bleeding. Oh no, they are dead. Don't call again. Sorry, I panicked.
I was having a really fun time the entire way through, even when the episodes were kind of subpar in terms of storytelling. And that's another thing to say, is that not all of this season is strong. There are 52 episodes, not all of them are bangers. You have really, really good episodes that don't really contribute to the plot at all. Like the 4th episode, Together Breakfast, I actually really, really enjoyed because it kind of gave us a more deeper look as to how the gems treat Steven and how Steven looks up to and wants to be with the gems more. And then you have episodes like Too Many Birthdays, which add nothing to the plot and are nightmare fuel, and I wish they didn't exist. Also, I would be remiss to talk about the show and not mention that it just looks really nice. This show has the visual style of lo-fi beats to study and relax to, and I just love it. And the animation doesn't slouch either. Every episode has really solid animation. Even in animated shows that I really, really like, I can always kind of spot moments that are stiff or just a little bit jank. But in Steven Universe, I don't think I really ever had moments where I was kind of put off by the animation. Okay, maybe there are like 1 or 2 moments that looked a little weird. And talking about the world building a little bit more, I really, really like how we're told about fusion and how that kind of works and how it plays into gem culture. Fusion is kind of a metaphor for relationships in this show. Not all fusions are healthy, some are more powerful than others, but they require each of the 2 parties to give something and synchronize with each other. It's a really neat and different power system, I guess, in this universe that really lends itself to a whole bunch of options, because now whenever we see 2 gems or 3 gems, we wonder what would they look like fused together, and that's such a fun concept. It just lets imagination run wild, and I think it's really, really fun. Fuck, I'm warm. I actually think this is pretty fitting. This is pretty Steven Universe-y, I would say. Palm Beach, baby. But yeah, I love how we are introduced to fusions as kind of like this last resort thing that the gems have, this super powered move that they can do. But they don't do it all the time, not because it's dangerous to them or to the world around them, but because it is emotionally a very big thing to do. Fusing is really important to gem culture and their interpersonal relationships, and so doing it all the time without a good reason is weird and doesn't feel right. I also like that it's not fully explained what fusing is. It's kind of intangible. Garnet says it in the Stevani episode. You are not 2 people. You are not 1 person. You are an experience. And I think that's really, really great. We're never really told this concrete explanation as to who controls what about the body. Are they like a separate entity? Are they the 2 qualities of the gems mixed together, or are they something completely different? We're never really told. It's just kind of like relationships in that way. It's not really completely defined, and it's not the same every time. And I think that's cool. You don't always need power systems to be 100% concrete. I think this type of thing is super fine and actually is really fun and adds some mystique and mystery and wonder to the entire thing. I just think fusion is really cool, and more shows should do stuff like it. I'm gonna talk about the characters next. Starting off with our main man, Steven. This will be pretty short. Steven is a pretty simple guy. He is just good, and that's all he really needs to be. He is always kind-hearted. He is always generous. He is always thinking about others. Steven is what everyone should aspire to be, and that's kind of interesting because Steven's whole story is about aspiring to be someone else who's not him. He wants to be like his mother, but he's not her. And from what I know about later in the show, He's gonna have to come to grips with that. But I mean, what is there really else to say? Steven is Steven. He's a cute kid, he's a funny kid, he's a nice kid, and that's the most important part. He's nice. Steven doesn't want to fight. Steven wants everybody to be friends, wants everybody to fix things and get along. And then we have the crystal gems, starting off with Pearl. Pearl is our resident info dump. Every show needs one. If anybody's going to explain something, it's gonna be Pearl. But it doesn't feel like unnatural exposition because Pearl really, really likes to teach Steven about stuff. Specifically about gem stuff. She wants Steven to know more about gem culture. She wants Steven to see space. She wants Steven to be closer to his mother and her history. Or also because she's kind of obsessed with being right. So being able to teach people about stuff and show off her knowledge seems very appropriate for Pearl. That being said, Pearl is probably my least favorite of the crystal gems. And that's not to say that she's bad at all. I think that she's really cool. But she's kind of delegated to being the neurotic, overprotective mom character who's kind of self-important and righteous. It kind of just lends to her being a less naturally likable character. But again, that doesn't mean that she's really any worse than the others. I still think she's a very strong character. She has a very strong relationship to Steven. I think she's great, and I think that her emotional moments in the show are particularly quite fantastic. When she realizes that she might not have known Rose as well as she thought she did, when she believes she has basically given her entire life to her, it's quite effective. It's quite powerful stuff. I think Rose has very strong character work and emotional scenes. Amethyst! Amethyst is the big sister. She's the one that's kind of always bullying Steven, kind of pushing him around, but deep down she really, really cares about him, and will kind of do anything to protect him. Now I know this one's going to be a little controversial, because I think public opinion is kind of split on Amethyst, and some people like her, and some people really, really don't like her. Personally, I think Amethyst is a very interesting character, and I like her presence in the show quite a bit. I think she adds a crucial dynamic to the gems. Pearl and Garnet are very by the books, very responsible, noble gem warriors. Amethyst is the opposite. Amethyst is the most human out of the gems, and that's why she comes into conflict with Pearl most often, because Pearl is the most gem. She does things the most like gems, and Amethyst, being born on Earth, feels the most in conflict with her sensibilities. Amethyst is a bundle of shame and confidence issues and self-consciousness and self-deprecation, and it's kind of nuts. It is a constant thing that Amethyst feels out of place in the crystal gems. She doesn't feel like she relates to the other gems. She feels constantly berated by them and like she can't really be herself around them. And that kind of leads her to running off and doing her own thing quite a bit of the time. It also leads to her relating to Steven a lot more. Because he's kind of the most human next to her, she relates to his side of wanting to break free and be someone who he's not always meant to be. And I think that Amethyst really relates to that, and so she really cares about Steven on a different level. Now, the biggest controversy about Amethyst are her actions in the episode Maximum Capacity, where she's helping Greg and Steven clear out Greg's fully stacked garage, and she ends up reconnecting with Greg after a little while. And they watch a show together, and then Greg realizes that he's got to go be with Steven. Then Amethyst is worried that he's going to leave her alone, like she's always felt, like everybody always does, and she turns into rose quartz and triggers some trauma for him. Okay, so was this a shitty thing to do? Absolutely. Do I think that she needs an excuse made for her? No, I don't think you can excuse it. That being said, I don't think that this was a bad character moment or that this makes her a bad character. I know people like Amethyst, people who would rather lash out than look in. People who would rather others be angry at them and berate them than leave them alone and pity them. So I think, and it's kind of implied that her and Greg used to be close, and for some reason they kind of like fell off, and they kind of just like don't hang out a lot more, and she finally kind of reconnects with someone who she relates to and can feel more at ease in herself with, and he leaves to go be with somebody else, and she feels like she's second fiddle. She's always felt like she was a defect, like she was a mistake, like she was just something that's thrown aside super easily, and she can only think of one way to get Greg to stay, and so she lashes out. I think that makes sense for her character. Another problem people had with this was that she kind of just like cleans out Greg's garage and that means everything's fine. I don't think that's what happened. I don't think that fixed everything. I think that was meant to signify a step in the right direction for Amethyst and becoming better about having more self-worth and like realizing how her internal conflicts are kind of affecting people around her. I don't think that was meant to be like, okay, everything's good now, because it's not. Amethyst still has plenty of troubles that she works through later on. And I have a friend who I'm living with that I asked about this, and they said that they thought Amethyst was an interesting character who was troubled, but it wasn't really explored that much, and they could have delved deeper, that they thought it was very surface level. And I gotta say, I disagree with that too. Something that I really, really appreciate about Steven Universe is its ability to show us emotions, not explain them to us. Even though I love shows like The Owl House or Amphibia, a lot of the morals in their story kind of boil down to characters explaining how they felt in the moment in a very cartoon way. When someone is being a dick for an episode, at the end of the episode, they inevitably have a speech where they're like, I'm sorry, I was being a dick. Won't you take me back and forgive me? And then the other person's like, you goober, of course I'll always love you, but you gotta learn from your mistakes. And then the episode's over, and then everybody leaves a better person. And I'm not saying that that type of stuff is bad. I like that writing. I like those shows. I think there is something to be said for just kind of saying what you're trying to say. But there is something so real and more nuanced about Steven Universe not really giving concrete resolutions to their emotional storylines. For example, the first Stevani episode, Alone Together, ends with not really a concrete answer as to what Steven and Connie felt about being fused. They just kind of, we see moments of them as Stevani getting upset or getting worried or getting anxious, and also being happy and feeling free and feeling new. And the episode ends with them kind of angrily dancing and freaking out, and then they unfuse, and then they start laughing and also crying, and then they keep on dancing. There's not really a concrete resolution to whether they thought it was a good experience or a bad experience. Are they laughing because it was really great and they found something new about themselves, or are they laughing because they're relieved and glad that it's over? I think that it's really cool that Steven Universe kind of lets the characters feel and then decides to let you figure out how you felt about it. And I think that's kind of what happened with Amethyst during that episode. We were just kind of shown people feeling, shown how people deal with their feelings, and it made us feel uncomfortable, obviously. And it's easy to say that, well, Amethyst is in the wrong. But if you don't take a closer look as to what has been, but if you refuse to kind of take a closer look as to what's been going on with Amethyst throughout the show and her actual emotional arcs that had previously been explored, I think that there is a real conversation to be had about who Amethyst is and how she deals with emotions. I think it's great that we have a character who deals with her inward insecurities by lashing out with anger or rage or insults, I think that those types of characters can be very powerful, and I think that Amethyst is that type of character. I think she does that quite well. Whew, that was a long conversation about Amethyst. That's just to say that I really like her. I don't know too much about her plot lines later on, but I will hopefully be coming back to these characters and how I feel about them after every season. So for now, I like Amethyst. She plays a great big sister role to Steven. I think she's just really fun. And Garnet. Garnet, the goat. Again, like Steven, I don't even really know what to say about Garnet because everybody knows that she's just the best. She has a great relationship to the other gems. Everybody seems to have kind of like this agreed respect for Garnet and her kind of power and sense of self. I don't know why I didn't really pick up on her being the leader the first time I watched this. The second time around, it's very clear that she's kind of the one that's calling the shots for the gems. And she's obviously the most powerful and the strongest out of all of them. I kind of just assumed it was Pearl, maybe because she is kind of like super controlling, so she just kind of came across as more assertive, or that she was Rose Quartz's right hand. But no, the leader of the Crystal Gems is very clearly Garnet. And Garnet, she's so cool. She's so great. She doesn't talk much, but she plays like the strong, silent type character very well. Because it's not that she doesn't talk because she's shy or abrasive or rude, or that she's just averse to speaking. She only speaks with purpose. So every line she has is either really funny or really powerful. Every time Garnet speaks, everybody in the room shuts up. And it's that type of like authority and respect that she kind of demands, and I think that's super, super cool. And yeah, she's hilarious. I think she's the funniest character on the show. She's the best one-liners out of any character I've ever seen.
We can't fight these things forever. Well, we can, but I don't want to.
Like, strong silent characters are always like room for funny times, but Garnet is just she's so respectable and cool on its own. Just letting her be funny and sweet it's such a good shift. And that's another thing, she's so sweet. Whenever she gets to interact with Steven in like these cute ways, it just shows how much she genuinely really cares for him.
Well, Danger is my middle name.
That's a lie. Your middle name is Cutie Pie.
Speaking of Garnet's relationship to Steven, I think it's neat to point out that Garnet seems to be the person with the most respect for Steven. She's always kind of saying, let's do it Steven's way. Let's try Steven's idea. This might go somewhere. Steven has had good ideas in the past. Let's let him try. And I think that's so cool. So she lets Steven kind of get away with anything he wants sometimes. She's much more lenient with a lot of Steven's ideas. But because she respects him and respects his ideas, she also respects that he's gonna make mistakes. And that's also why she takes it more seriously and gets more upset when Steven actually fucks up and refuses to learn or listen. And yeah, her reveal at the end of the season is great. The fact that she was a fusion the entire time is just lovely, and Ruby and Sapphire are lovely, but that's more in later seasons. But it was just, it's so cool. Garnet's so cool. Garnet's the best character. Hands down. Talking about like the gems in general, again, I think it's really great how they each have a special and unique bond to Steven. And that's kind of the crux of this show, really. The relationship between Steven and the gems are really what keeps this show going and is really the emotional core of it. Pearl is like the overbearing, overcaring parent to Steven, who's super paranoid that he's gonna hurt himself at every corner. And that makes sense because Pearl loved Rose more than anything else, and Steven kind of is Rose. Of course, she would be overprotective of her legacy. Amethyst is very much the roughhouse big sister. Amethyst seems to bully Steven sometimes and give him a hard time, but genuinely loves him and protects him with everything she's got. And Garnet, again, is kind of the in-between. She's very caring and protective, but she wants Steven to kind of do his own thing and learn on his own. She recognizes that they can't always be there for him, so she wants Steven to learn how to take care of himself. The only two other characters I think are worth mentioning are Greg and Connie. They're the two side characters that show up the most. Greg is Steven's dad who lives in a van and is like this ex-musician, and Connie is Steven's friend slash love interest. Greg is a great dad. Greg is a great cartoon dad. He constantly has panic attacks about letting his son be like a superhero and is constantly getting into dangerous situations. He has to like calm himself down. It's great. And I love that Steven has as much to teach Greg as Greg has to teach Steven. They both are constantly learning from each other, and I think that that is lovely. It's always nice to see a healthy parent relationship in a show. I feel like those are kind of gone with these days. And then Connie is a really great addition, giving Steven a best friend, someone human that he really, really cares about on a different level. Not necessarily family, but like someone that he has forged this connection with on his own. It's a different connection than everybody else, and I think that makes it more important because of that. And like they're just cute together. They have a really lovely rapport, and it just gets better and better as the show goes on. Overall, I quite enjoyed the first season of Steven Universe. Definitely more than I did when I first watched it, and I am super pumped to talk more about it. If you have any thoughts about the first season of Steven Universe, if you want to share some of your opinions and thoughts about what I had brought up today, that would be lovely, down in the comments if you would like. No spoilies, because I don't remember a lot from the show, so please don't spoil too much from later on. But thank you for watching if you did, and I will see you next time. I love you!